personally, I do kind of see it as the planet type cards would be more generic or lower rarity. And then as we get into the different story planet cards, they would be higher rarity, especially because this is just our first iteration of these story-based planets. We're going to make more
first
of them.
edition. This is exciting, guys. We're making first edition.
Yeah, exactly. Multiple editions, but the most accessible card is the generic planet card. And that opens up the generic game. And then as you get more of these edition cards, you can experience the game differently.
Welcome to the Starship Writers Room,
a podcast that gives you an up-close look at the creation of the Starship universe.
We talk new characters, hash out plot points, and imagine possibilities that are truly out of this world.
And which you might see featured in the Deploy Starship NFT game,
a play-to-earn cryptocurrency game set in outer space.
I'm Melanie, the Starship Lore Champion, and I'm joined by my co-hosts and fellow Starship Lore creators,
Shooty Pew Pew, your world builder,
and
Spazzitron of CryptoPhoenix.org.
Should we talk about NFTs today?
I would love to.
All right.
Yes, definitely. Shooty is the one that I can tell whenever he talks about it that he's got some ideas cooking up there.
All right. So before we get into talking about NFTs, would you guys like to share anything that might have inspired you this week?
I have been listening to a lot of music, been doing some composing, and specifically going back through my life, going back through a lot of my favorite video game music again, another week. And one of the names that comes up a lot, Nobuo Uematsu, he is one of the most prolific and kind of best known video game composers. Also within his own work, best known for the Square Enix games, the Final Fantasy games. And so I just, in listening to his early stuff and later stuff and stuff that he is just a part of, it becomes apparent that later on in video game production, there's teams of people producing, arranging, recomposing, Nobuo Uematsu's original themes, perhaps, I don't know, in collaboration with him directly. And in the beginning, it's just beep, bop, boop, MIDI files on a Super Nintendo, or maybe even a regular Nintendo. It's inspiring because the artist is not held back, the artist is not held back by the technology, but rather just pushes the technology to its limits to capture what is in his head, and so it's really exciting to listen and watch the evolution of it. And you see the name credits, the composing / producing / arranging credits, like the list of names, the more modern the song is, the more recent, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. And so it's inspiring to know that it's not the technology that holds it back. He had so many great ideas, and he just pushed the music writing programs essentially to their limit and made 16-bit NES sound amazing. And changed the lives of little 5, 6, 7-year-olds putting in a Final Fantasy cartridge for the first time.
The entire story behind the initial Final Fantasy for the Famicom and NES is an inspiring one. I'm sure there's little documentaries. I've seen one somewhere on YouTube. Just the entire story. It's a complete underdog situation. The way that game even was able to come out at all. That's a good one.
I love hearing about that. I look forward to looking
Tell me
for that.
more.
Well, it was he was all out of money, and so he was kind of salty about that none of his games took off, and that's why he called it Final Fantasy, because it was he's like, this is the last game I'm gonna make, and I'm quitting my job.
Oh, I love stories like that.
And it was the dev team was just it was 2 dudes and they're just sleeping in the office. They're basically sleeping in shifts so that they could get it out on time.
Oh wow!
It's and it turned out good enough to go forward.
Pretty well, yeah.
Wow, I love that. I love stories like that where it's like whoever is like, this is my last thing. And there's something about it feels like, and then it's like the hugest thing ever, and it's like it sets them up for life. It feels like there's something about that mindset that happens when you've gone through so many failures, quote unquote failures, and then you get to this stage where you're like, what, like, this is just it. Like, it's kind of like a surrender. And
Nothing left to lose.
yeah, and you go for it, but you also it's like you give yourself permission to let that be the last thing. And there's something really powerful for me whenever I can see an end in sight. There's something that transforms that like gives me such energy and motivation, and yeah, just like this kind of vigor that I can approach it with, because I know it's not going to be forever in a way. So and whenever I hear stories like that, it's like, oh, I find it so inspiring, especially just like I find overnight success stories to be less inspiring for me. I find it more relatable and accessible, and like it lights me up more when it's someone who's gone through a lot and worked really hard and or been at it for so long, and then suddenly just like bam, like their thing blows up.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are going to talk about NFTs today. And I want us to agree on some templates for what we include on different NFT types so that we can then start getting what we have together for the planets and the creatures in and basically sending that content in NFT form to the game team so they can start creating the NFTs and the art and everything.
All right.
I think that for the founders, they should get an NFT form of that snake that was drawn in the lore chat.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, that would be awesome. If you get it, you get it. Yeah.
So one of the challenges is that at least now we would be building an NFT line that would expand the function of whatever, the use of Kyanite, the harvesting of Kyanite. But if we're adding extra NFT functions, we're adding functions to the game, like ammo or ammo types, resource types on different planets. The NFT abilities as they stand now, we would have to exclusively make them around the harvesting of Kyanite, because that is literally the game's only function. There are 3 ships and you pick a planet, and the 3 ships go to different planets or to the same planet. And so the only NFT abilities we would have would be like mine twice as much Kyanite this time, or if we're thinking like abilities, because that's kind of how I think of it. But of course, we haven't talked about that as much either too. But if we're expanding on that, like I said, ammo types, creature races, NFT like abilities that come from different creatures or characters, then I think we have a little more work to do than just in one podcast, one conversation right now. And I look forward to the push to get it done quickly. But defining the parameters, that's a task.
Mm-hmm. Well, I propose we start with planets, planet types, and then creatures, and probably see where that takes us.
Yeah, and heroes and villains eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I like heroes and villains. It's one of my favorite parts.
What is kind of helping me is I'm kind of looking at it as if it were like a card game, and just what appears on the card, rather than maybe thinking so much about the functionality.
Yeah, because I think, yeah, I gotcha.
I think the functionality too will be a collaboration with us and the game development team.
Of course.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I do like that too. I like, because I grew up, I think Magic the Gathering was one of my first like immersive fantasy game kind of things outside of a video game. And that was a big thing. Magic the Gathering is like, it had the cost of the card, which of course for NFTs may or may not play in. one ability and then a little bit of a lore, and then a whole lot of a lore snippet. So the lore of the card actually took up most of the card, and the ability was like, +1 to attack,
Okay.
The Magic the Gathering flavor text was really what I was trying to go for with my initial entries, where it's like, can you tell a story in 2 sentences?
Yeah,
That's
what hooked me into your writing. That's what I was like, I like this guy because it felt like that. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because you're kind of giving yourself like less to work with, but it kind of helps at the same time. I mean, there's a card I remember verbatim. It's like a device that like freezes time or something, and the quote was, what's the point of this? It doesn't do anything. No, it does nothing. And I'm like, that's so cool. So yeah, I have that same sort of background.
Also, as we're talking about it, to continue giving preamble to talking about the subject we're about to talk about, I also exploring how we want to create this. A lot of the community submissions, I mean, Wilbur is a surprisingly thought out, real character. As I was expecting a couple more details, like his favorite pair of lucky overalls, which he did include, which is awesome. He's got the drits. He wrote in, there's holes in his thighs and chest where he would rub his dirty hands. Like, that's a detail. Like, you got to live that life a little bit to know that detail. I really liked that. Yes. But as we're thinking of coming up with lore, like, how comical do we want to get? How much are we sliding toward Star Trek universe, and how much are we sliding toward like everything is cartoony and slapstick? Like, where do we fall on the spectrum? And I really enjoy like kind of a serious story with, like 25 to 40% lighthearted, and like some of the creatures we find are a little bit ridiculous. And so the NFTs, of course, would follow suit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have a problem sliding back and forth, because, I mean, we have like the character we talked about last time that Mel and I talked is a literal like enslaved orphan, and then at the same time we have in the arc where Michael gets in trouble with the coalition because he like streaked through the lunchroom or whatever. So we can. I think we can play to both sides fairly easily.
Yeah. Good. Well, trust in the team. We've already got that chemistry going. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to like have the balance and kind of, for me, it's like conveying the human experience in terms of that gravity and lightness. Definitely. So yeah, there are definitely like comedic bits and dark times, if that makes sense. But also, even with the range of characters, like Spazzitron was saying, that there are going to be some heavier characters and their tones are going to be heavier, but we're also going to explore some lightness with them. And then there are going to be characters that are more for comedic effect. I think that, I definitely see like just how we've written Michael as, I feel like he's definitely there for the lulz, but he's like definitely a competent character as well,
Yeah. Like, so there's like a certain amount of respect that we have to take with some issues. Like with the arc of the wretch, it's like, yeah, that would be super messed up to try and make that funny, because like there are orphans, there are enslaved people, but there's 3 of us. So if any of us start to go off the rails, there's 2 others to be like, yo, not cool.
Yeah.
We got that checks and balances system.
Yeah.
So Planet NFTs.
Yeah, so Planet NFTs. I think initially we start with the types, and then we could even have specific NFTs for the planets that we've written that are more for the story.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, like there could be like a generic one as well as like a proper name, like planets, like you said, that are in the story. I gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah, either the story NFTs are very common, so everybody has a piece of them to put the comic book together, or they're like gold foil rare. We could go either way with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
As far as Planet NFTs, how do you want to talk about this right now?
I would love to see what you guys think would be included on, like, obviously we have started our writing with some prompts. So, all the planets have certain information. For type, I would see maybe how are some common ways this planet is formed? And maybe definitely what kind of kyanite do you find on this planet?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some other things for the planet type, the generic card that we see being included on there?
We could hint at creatures. We could have a line that, on swamp planets that have life, it's typically things that flap between the trees and slither on the floor. Sort of like you just have like a generic, like, here's what these creatures will look like going forward generally.
Yeah.
2 bits of good information that could be in the generalized planet. One is synergy with other planets.
Oh, love, yes, of course.
How the paradise synergy with this, grassland and ocean I'm writing is kind of having a sort of a synergy together somehow, and then another is synergy with races. So if you hold a bunch of grasslands NFT planet cards, maybe that gives you +2 if we're using the weaponry or the armor or the actual like race or class that is based on that planet,
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like if you have like you said, like maybe you have the paradise planets, and if you have, it makes your biped type stronger, or your, android type strong, like something like that. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, or location based. Like if you're currently on a grassland planet, you get that bonus. But if you're not, you don't.
Yeah, I like that.
So I don't know if we're going to have commonalities for planet types, but it could be something about how you might visit this planet. And so, for example, if we do have something, like the paradise planet where you can fall through, kind of the overarching thing would be, these planets can be of the physical or of the metaphysical or non-physical. So something to know for visitors of those planet types, I think would be useful.
Okay.
I'm milling that over.
It could also be that this is more appropriate for the specific planet cards, but yeah, I was thinking something like, how do you interact with this planet type? What are the common interactions?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that. I think I kind of know where your mind is going. Like we have 10 different planets. Why do we want to do the exact same NFT mechanics for all 10 planets? Like what if when you go to the glacier planet, that travel is slowed down? Everything takes longer because it's just this whitewash of snow and it's a harsh environment, and you have to dig down through the crust to even get anywhere. And so like, what if like it's a characteristic of going to a glacier planet in general, that it takes more kyanite to mine, or it burns more of this specific like magma related resource, a fire resource that you need. Like if you have fire resource, then it makes it easier to travel on glacier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if we do like a card game, maybe if you're on a glacier planet, like everything comes into play tapped, basically, like everything takes a turn to like warm up or something like that.
Yes, no, that's great. Let's write that down. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Another one I was thinking about, this gets in a little more with creatures. The main race of Ocean Planet, these jellyfish / octopus-like creatures. I was thinking about like different ocean planets could have different variants of this dominant race. Like some of them are much more jellyfish-like, and some of them are much more octopus or squid-like. But some of them are aggressive and some of them are friendly. And so when you approach the planet, there's a random number generator, like, you tap it, or you interact with the ocean planet, and it random number generates 1 through 4 or 1 through 5. How many variants are there of this squid jellyfish race? And if it pops up a 5, it's the aggressive race, and they're going to slow you down for that mining trip. Or if you pop up a 1, then it's the friendly race, and you're going to get more kyanite, and it's easier. So like sort of a general planet / creature, like dominant race interaction with a little RNG thrown in. Maybe that's Ocean Planet's thing.
Yeah, I like that. Like basically like a general like hostility or non-hostility thing. And that could even like be that could because that could have to do with the creatures or just the planet itself.
Totally.
And like you said, there could be like some gaming mechanics where it's like luck based, where it's like, oh, this is a planet, your ocean planet. This one's all like full of hostile creatures, but they're if you get lucky, maybe they'll just be really tiny ones that can't do anything to you anyway. Like.
We also have some dual race planets like Swamp, and so it could be like similar to Ocean, except when you approach a swamp planet, you pick a race. You say, do I want to make this trip allied with the gators, or do I want to make this trip allied with the bats? And then that would play out how that trip changes.
I love that. That's really cool.
So we've got Glacier, they come in tapped. Ocean, we RNG hostile versus friendly. Swamp, we actually choose. So that's cool. It sets up some different mechanics for each planet.
Yeah, totally. I like that.
Yeah, that's cool. As far as the named planets, again to keep borrowing from Magic the Gathering, I kind of pictured like as planets being something that you need to have to participate in certain things, like if we do a card game. But then like if you get really lucky or you want to like build out your deck a little bit more, instead of just having the generic planets, you can swap one or two of those out with a named planet, and it could do all the stuff that the basic planet does, but also have like extra stuff that it does for you.
Okay, so that would turning it into a joker or a wild card a little bit would mean that it has to be more rare.
Yeah, exactly. So like it would be one of those things where it's like, okay, if you want to be like super competitive and like really flush out your deck, you could get more of the named ones. But even if you don't have those, you can still play and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Like how they have legendary lands where it's like it's a land, but it also like you can use it as a land or you can use it as a creature. Like that's how it was done in previous games.
Wait, use it as a land or use it as a creature? That made me think of. So I have a Great Beasts idea going for a couple different planets. So like I've mentioned my giant sea turtle on land. Yes. That could be a kingdom and a creature. We've kind of got the same thing going on with Melanie's Glacier, and the third layer of the planet is the deep water where that big guy lives, and he is sort of both a creature and the planet itself.
Yeah, like a sentient bog sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like for the swamp. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't think Shooty heard that one yet.
Oh.
Yeah, because that was when we were talking.
It's all blurring together, but
I know, right? So exciting.
But yeah, it was cool. So her idea was basically it's like a portion of this bog, and if you like tread through it and keep walking, it'll sort of become slug-like or like the water from Moana or something, and kind of it could be dangerous, but it's just trying to get like its mud back, sort of.
That's terrifying, dude.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it might maybe you'll get lucky and it'll just gobble up your shoe and your shoe will come off. But if you're not so lucky, you might get
I have a similar idea for my ocean planet. Is like kind of a giant wandering island of kelp that generates an ecosystem around it. So like from space, you look down and it's this almost small continent sized. And at the very center of it is a couple different types of kelp. And then around that is small fish. And then around that, bigger fish, bigger fish, bigger fish. So we have this floating ecosystem that is sort of alive in itself. But that's different than your bog idea. Your bog is actually like sentient and some sort of unified consciousness. And ocean, it's like not malicious. It's just floating there.
I like that. I like looking
that a lot.
It from space, and like I see maybe, someone who's about to get stranded on that planet, and they're like, okay, well, I'll aim for this land, and then they get closer and it's like, wait, this isn't land. What is this? I thought this was an island.
Yeah, and even in the story, like there could be one person that says, "Oh shoot, this is alive. I should leave my ship up in orbit and I'll just kind of parachute down here." Versus, and they don't have any problems but then somebody's like, oh, screw it, and they just like land directly on it, and like they hurt it somehow with like the little jet engines, and then it becomes hostile.
Oh,
So it could be either it's peaceful if you are peaceful, and less peaceful if you are less peaceful.
Yeah, there you go.
that's fun. Okay, so yeah, I do kind of see it as the planet type cards would be more generic, or sorry, lower rarity. And then as we get into the different story planet cards, they would be higher rarity, especially because, like, this is just our first iteration of these story based planets. We're going to make more
first
of them.
edition. This is exciting, guys. We're making first edition.
Yeah, exactly. Multiple editions, but the kind of the most accessible card is the generic planet card. And that opens up, I'll just keep using the word generic for lack of a better term, but the generic game. And then as you get more of these edition cards, you can experience the game differently.
I'm liking it. I'm nodding.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, the silence could go either way here.
So just for recording it on audio, like for the listener kind of thing, I have my computer open with the planet variant list that I wrote up. Would it be all right if I read that out loud?
Heck yes.
Okay. And again, this doesn't have to be canon. This is just what we have as a draft so far. But so we have 10 different planet types, different commonalities or different rarities for those planet types themselves. I thought for the first 4, grassland, desert, swamp, and ocean, that we have 5 different variations or 5 different like biomes, NFT variations with different kind of rules for how that would play out. And then as you increase in rarity, Paradise and Glacier have 4 different biomes. And then Magma, Metallic, Gas, and Crystal have 3 different ones. Except we've talked about on Crystal, Magma, and Paradise, there being one very rare variation. So on Magma, that would be the Mythic Forge. On Crystal, that would be like the Grand Hall, or the that end game kind of place. And then on Paradise, it would be our healing ashram, or like the floating, disappearing, the storyline kind of Paradise planet variation. So for grassland, something simple like a plains variation, forest, rivers, lakes, and mountains, that would cover the 5 different and that's very generic, very not as exciting, but I was thinking each of those variations would have an NFT booster. Again, like forests would be something about stealth, rivers, something about commerce, lakes would be, I don't know, and mountains would be like increases attack and defense. With desert, dunes of the 5 different desert variations, the dunes or the desert type, that would be the most common, the one that everybody, like almost everybody gets. But that's where, I like the idea of a dust one, an oasis one. So there's like commerce similar to rivers. There's like some sort of commerce boost for oasis, space camels and little villages. And then this would be a fun place to introduce a kudzu variation. So we had talked a few calls ago about a fun place where people have to burn trees just to survive because everything keeps overgrowing.
Yeah.
And the thought of putting that on a desert planet would be, it's a good fit. It fits in swamp as well. It fits in a few different planets, but I thought that might be fun. And then 3 of these planets have sort of a bug planet variant. And we were talking about space pirates, and I was talking about bugs on the desert planet. And maybe we're talking about, what about insect pirates?
I like insect pirates. That's awesome.
So we have those 5 variations: dunes, dust, oasis, kudzu, and bug planet, or the hive. For swamp, we've got 5 different variants: the tree of life, which would be where the bats live; a lost Amazon, or land of the lost kind of idea, so dinosaurs and rainforest. A 3rd variation would be the gator turf, Mel's gator race. 4th variation would be bug planet, because it's a swamp, so you got to have giant mosquitoes. And then the 5th variation for swamp, I was thinking glowing sanctuaries, the community lore inspired idea that there were pockets of kyanite that provided like safety. And as they get mined out, the planet becomes more hostile. So that can be a foundational idea behind our swamp NFT, that as it becomes mined, it becomes more hostile, to go along with the dual race theory.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
It's really cool.
Ocean, we've got 5 variants. The Great Beast, which would be a giant whale, a giant shark, a giant sea turtle, a giant eel, maybe. The second variation, Deep Civilization. So, Lost City of Atlantis, like really diving down and mining the deep treasures. Maybe more artifacts or more special NFTs would be found in the Deep Civilization variant. Rainbow Reefs, where we have a lot of color, a lot of life, coral reefs and lots of fish variants. An archipelago variant, so lots of surface life like birds and monkeys and different types of, sea turtles and crustaceans. That might be like a place to find little pets in the game. And then for the last variant of Ocean, I was thinking Riptide. This is a very I forget the name of the planet, but in Star Wars, the place where Boba Fett and at Attack of the Clones, like that ocean kind of planet with all these raging, roaring waves, and there's sort of a space city built on the surface. But this would be where you find like really aggressive shark types and really aggressive, kind of badass hunting kind of races, or even just like a softer side, like Finding Nemo. You find these really big currents around the Riptide planets that let you travel more efficiently. So it can be reduces kyanite consumption.
Oh, I like that. I like Riptide a lot. It can be
That's so cool.
And I love how you pointed out that it can really go either way, because my first impression was this insidious force, but yeah, it can actually be used for that, efficiency and speed.
I like that. It seems like with all these ideas, there's like an A side and a B side. It's not either like really bad or really good. Generally, I'm liking it.
Yeah, like some of them are obviously always good,
Yeah.
But then some of them have a duality. Within Paradise, this is when we start going from 5 different variants down to 4. I really only have the floating landscape, like a very Avatar kind of esque paradise, like what you see when you look at the NFT art of Paradise now.
Yeah.
And then so I kind of we can open it up to discussion of different NFT variants for that. Glacier is very obvious. We have the surface level, the subsurface, the deep, and then the inner crust or the core. With Magma, I was thinking 3 variants and then the extra rare. So the 3 variants would be like an engineering fortress. This would be a place which is both a fortress for defense, but also like an engineering center, like a forge. You forge everything from common to epic. And then you'd need the legendary or the mythic forge planet variant, or you'd have to travel to a mythic forge planet variant in order to create a legendary or a mythic component or a legendary or mythic weapon or armor. So the engineering fortress could be both a fortress and just your basic forge. It's just a thought, it might be a hang up to have to, people have to go to a magma planet just to make anything. That might be too much of a hang up. But other variants for magma would be lava ocean. So most of the planet is covered in magma, and flowing rivers of magma and like floating islands and giant magma serpents or something. There be dragons here kind of thing. And then bug planet. This is a good place for magma ants and scorpions and something like that.
Yeah, like where it's like mostly ground, but only there's like little volcanoes and stuff.
Yeah, and
Gotcha.
And like everything's mined out, and yeah. Metallic, Melanie, that's kind of, other than the ring, I don't have many thoughts on that yet, other than from reading your notes, what NFT variants might be for metallic. Gas is the second most rare, so only 3 variants. I thought the mists, I was trying to think of like the vapors, something other than just the word gas. But some sort of just the common, like this is the gas planet as you would think of it. The second variation would be our moon base planet. And the third variation would be like a gas planet that maybe is a little smaller that you actually land on, and it just has very toxic air, in it.
Yeah, like a smog variant, but there's actually ground to land on. That's cool.
Yeah. And then crystal, of being the most rare, I thought maybe 2 NFT variants plus the extra super rare, Grand Hall end game kind of variant. But Sacred Forest was one of the ideas that Jade, who wrote some lore for crystal, Sacred Forest being these giant mountains of crystal, or the pillars of crystal that the locals all just call the forest. And then geodesic caverns, because how much fun is that to have a place that's just like, it's caverns. You mine and they look beautiful, and you find exotic animals inside the caves, and
I like it.
So that's the full list that I have so far of NFT variants for planets.
It also feels like we could have some planets, some story-based planets. It's like you have to have 2 or 3 NFTs to make the planet. So especially with when you said lava ocean for magma. So for the metallic story-based planet, you could have the planet, like the conscious core or the AI core, the ring. There is a lava ocean, or there is actually lava on the planet. I'm thinking of having it tidally locked with its star, so that one side is just an inferno, and that helps them to metal work and everything, forge their metal, and also exist as liquid metal forms more easily. And then there's like the solid side. So I feel like you could have 2 or 3 different NFTs, and once you collect them all, it turns into the metallic planet NFT.
Oh man, that's awesome. You just went Voltron with it. I like it.
That's perfect too. I mean, even like logistically that works, because they already have some way to do like blending of NFTs. So it looks like the infrastructure is like already set up for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
I did just write down, I've got our notes open, and I edited my planet variants. Conscious Core, that's a fantastic name for one of the variants.
That so much.
We've got 3 metallic variants, 3 of them. One is the ring, one is undetermined, and the other is Conscious Core. I like that.
Excellent.
One thing I think would be cool, because I got this idea from a video game I was playing. Like if there's a planet, like maybe that the coalition knows something about, like instead of having flavor text, like if it's a big story planet, it could, like when you first get the NFT, the flavor text is just the word redacted.
Ooh.
And then you do something else to it, and then like you get like a sentence, but like some like as you add to it, like it fills itself out sort of. I don't know if that's possible to do, but that'd be cool.
I love that. That's so cool.
It inspired me to think about like some of the flavor text could be from the point of view of different people. So like you said, some of the flavor text could be written from the point of view of the coalition. Some of it could be like from Faith's discovery, and then some of the flavor text could be like an omniscient point of view.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I feel like we've made a really good start, and we definitely need a part 2, probably a part 3.
Weapons and armor, man.
Yeah,
I'm just getting started. I have a great idea for weapons and armor. It's up here on our shared site.
Excellent. Yeah. So before we close, let's share like what we're looking forward to doing this week. So for me, I'm gonna continue working on the story that I'm having so much fun with, and I can't wait to share with you guys. And
Excellent.
I'm also gonna obviously edit this episode, and I'll take notes from the episode and I'll share those on the Conca, so that we can kind of keep going, in writing, and just kind of keep honing our ideas. And then maybe next week we talk about this again.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. So what are you guys up to this week, if you want to do a quick share?
I want to 2 big things. 3. Shoot. One of them, I'm in that sweet spot of composing. I'm composing a really good piece of music that I think that Matt is really going to enjoy. And so I'm like right in the sweet spot of like, yeah. So I'm getting to work on that. A second is definitely flushing out our creature compendium. That is, I've also been waiting to make time to do this. It's really exciting for me to put all the Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy and like all the thoughts of what do we want here? Like just start hundreds of creatures and then we have to narrow it down from there. And then the third idea, Starship Universe testing. We are behind the scenes. We got the test group going and I get to be part of it. So I'm going to be flying around trying to attack Tron's planet as he's trying to develop. I don't want to make everybody listening jealous, but it's a pretty fun game so far, and I've only done like 30 minutes with it.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too.
As far as what I'm working on, I want to get the arc for the wretch down. That's going to be shorter, so I'm probably going to do that so to give myself more time to think about the Fae and the Ronin.
Yeah, and you said like maybe we can talk about that too, because you said I'm not really too sure like where this starts. So yeah, we can definitely talk about that soon too, if you want to.
Yeah, I might even just get it like all written down, and then like we could take chunks of it and add it to, because it's sort of going on at the same time as other events are going on.
Other events in the story that I'm working on?
Well, no, because like so after the rescue mission, the Fae and the Ronin go off and do their thing. Matt discovers the wretch while they're doing their own, like as far as timeline goes, like he discovers that while he's on his little punishment for rescuing Fae. So
okay.
Yeah,
that makes okay. Also, just speaking of Fae's rescue, we need an epic battle scene for that. So just get your minds percolating on that. I propose.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, you both. And thank you so much to the listeners. We appreciate having you here. And please, please, please send us your suggestions, whether it's in the form of a voice note, a written thing, a piece of music, to lore@deploystarship.com. We will see you next time. Before we wrap up this episode of the Starship Writers Room, we just want to thank community member Recon John for their submission to the lore@deploystarship.com email address. Thank you so much, Recon John. I actually just want to read their submission. It is basically you're in the game and this is what happens. It's quite exciting stuff. So let's give it a listen. After claiming a new planet, during return flight, all hell breaks loose. Life support systems fail, shields are compromised, primary and secondary thrusters are at full power, but your ship is not responding. When exiting the system, you are caught in the gravitational pull of two opposing black holes. The ship will be torn apart. Drives engaged. You hope you can navigate to one of the black holes. Your ship shudders. Full power, and you enter the black hole. No light, no sound, no time. Your ship has returned to the station as if you never left. You check your logs and realize you've gone back in time. The other black hole would have had a similar result, but without the time travel. This black hole has transported you to an unknown station. You are lost and must navigate to an owned planet for assistance in finding out where you are. Use the planetary identify station by quadrant sector planet owner ID. You cannot travel to another station until you know where you are. Successfully leaving the station and finding your position would add some metric to earnings for a period of time. This will expire. So this is basically a quest that Recon John has proposed, which I think is awesome. I love black holes, and I love this idea of you being caught between two of them. How terrifying. And then entering it and actually time traveling and having to just orient yourself and find where you are. I think this is so cool, so creative. And they go on to say that the black holes could be very uncommon. So this could be just an
incentive to explore more. And it also reminded me, you know, because they say like that if you had chosen the other black hole, then there maybe wouldn't have been the time travel element. Maybe it would have been something else. So this is kind of cool for having that stroke of luck, you know, which one are you going to choose and how's it going to work out? So you get to experience the game differently based on which way you go. So this is super fun. Thank you so much again, Recon John. At the end of their email, they close with saying that they love the game, and we are so glad that you do. I'll definitely be sure to pass that message on to the game development team. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your email. If you have any ideas for the lore or the game, please do get in touch with us at lore@deploystarship.com. That's LORE@deploystarship.com. We so look forward to hearing from you, and we will see you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Starship Writers Room.
If you have an idea for the Starship lore, we would love to hear it, and you might even get a shout out on the pod.
Simply send to lore@deploystarship.com. That's LORE@deploystarship.com.
We hope you have a stellar day.
And we'll see you next week.